So if you bought something for $1 million, you could take $200,000 on your tax return for that year, which will negate the entire year's income. But I did see an article a couple days ago where she did say that she would increase the capital gains tax to 28%.
Correct.
From a real estate perspective, if you're a buyer and a seller, let's say you're selling, now you have to pay an extra 8%. Estate tax.
Yeah.
Right? So you've worked your whole life, you're paying the taxes in any which way that you are, right? Property tax every year, capital gains tax, you're doing this thing. And all of a sudden you have the people you love and care about, and they're in your will, and you want to give them assets or whatever you have in your estate, 40%.
Hi, and welcome to Common Denominator, a podcast about mindset, growth, and entrepreneurship. I'm Dave Azer, and Moshe Popak, everybody's favorite host, is sitting right there in the guest chair today. And we're going to talk about real estate. We're going to talk business. As always, my friend, thank you for letting me sit here and chat with you. I love being on the show with you.
Yeah, it's always a lot of fun. Always enjoy it. We've done it a couple times. I think that there's some good nuggets that always come out. So I always appreciate that.
Okay, so we're going to talk real estate for people who don't know, and we're 190 episodes into Common Denominator by now, so people probably do know. But if they don't, you're I will say, a highly successful real estate investor and entrepreneur, and a genius and an expert in this space. So we get to pick your brain on all things real estate every now and again. And first question I have for you is, the election is fast approaching. And we don't have to talk about who you're voting for. You can if you want to. But from a real estate perspective, as you hear both sides and where they stand on real estate, I'm just curious, like, where is your brain from a real estate perspective as we move towards election day?
Well, I think, again, just the box of actual things that happened. We saw when Trump, from a real estate perspective, we saw when Trump was in office, he had passed some tax advantages for people in real estate, but also business people. He dropped the capital gains rate, and he did something called, for real estate specifically, bonus accelerated depreciation. So the way it works with depreciation is, it's called, depreciation is basically the phantom loss. So basically you're earning rental income that's coming in, but the federal government looks at depreciation, that this asset will lose value all the way down to zero over, let's say, 30 years or 15 years, depending on what kind of real estate asset. But during Trump's administration, they passed a law that something called furniture and fixtures, which was usually on a 5-year schedule. Now it's on a 1-year schedule. And even if I bought the property December 31st of that year, I could take the whole 20%. So if you bought something for $1 million, you could take $200,000 on your tax return for that year, which will negate the entire year's income. So it was a great benefit. And even if you don't use those losses, they carry forward for 15 years.
Yeah.
So practically, right, penny saved, penny earned. So it's less money going to Uncle Sam, right? And you're keeping that money. So we know that Trump did that. Obviously, he's a real estate guy, right? So I'm sure, who knows what's going on in his mind, but if it's leaning this way or that way, right?
Right.
It'll probably lean it more towards that way.
Right.
And then we just haven't seen, when I think of Kamala, as far as real estate, I don't see, I compare it to the kind of similar the way Biden had, when Biden was in presidency, because she was vice president. So I think maybe they're similar. But I did see an article a couple days ago where she did say that she would increase the capital gains tax to 28%.
Correct.
Okay? Right? So we're about 20%, plus we have maybe a couple other percentages for random, whatever, the federal government gets you any which way. But that extra, but that's going from 20 to 28%. So from a real estate perspective, if you're a buyer and a seller, let's say you're selling, now you have to pay an extra 8%. So less money in the pocket. So I think from a complete neutral perspective, if Trump would win again, because we saw that, it would probably be better for real estate investors.
So a couple of questions on that. So capital gains tax, as a homeowner, of course, we all pay property tax, and that's annoying to pay property tax, but you understand it goes to the police force and it goes to the city and all that stuff. I get it. But capital gains tax is one that as like a layman, it just is annoying. It's just like an infuriating, frustrating thing to have to pay.
Yeah, I don't. There was always conversation because okay, so let's say there's about 150. So there's 330 million people in America. 150 million of them are employees, and there's, you make your salary and you pay tax. Right. You have a W-2 and you pay tax. And then let's say you're a business owner, you pay tax on whatever your profit is. I think the rate now is about 39%. So capital gains, I just want to explain to the layperson what capital gains tax is. So it's that if you hold it, there's short-term capital gains and long-term capital gains tax. So if you buy an asset, it could be even a car, it could be inventory, it could be factory, and also real estate. And so short-term would be you hold it less than 12 months, and long-term would be 12 months and a day plus. So the conversation has always been, sometimes there was almost 35% capital gain. So let's say you bought it for $1 million, and now you sold it for $2 million. If it's a 20% rate, then that $1 million gain, that's capital gains. That $1 million gain today under the code, it would be, so you made $1 million, 200,000 will go to Uncle Sam.
Right, and I don't mean to cut you off, but it's like you're already paying property tax. Right. I understand that they're different, but I just feel, I don't know. It's just something that it just seems like a tough pill to swallow.
I think that is, in any which way, the way I look at it, it ends up being that way. I think you talk about taxes. I sat with my attorney yesterday, and people should always think about this. I know it's like a morbid topic, but estate tax.
Yeah.
Right. So you've worked your whole life. You're paying the taxes in any which way that you are. Right. Property tax every year, capital gains tax. You're doing this thing. And all of a sudden you have the people you love and care about, and they're in your will, and you want to give them assets or whatever you have in your estate, 40%. It's a 40% tax. So just as far as practical advice, have a will, have a power of attorney, right, for healthcare proxies, have this basic trusts, like pour over trusts and different things. But to sit with the attorney, even I'm 44, even now I'm sitting with my attorney. It's smart because it's legal. I say legal loopholes, right? Things that are allowed under the code,
right?
And you could do structuring, which you have controls, and keep everything instead of within your family, within the people you care about.
Another real estate election-related point is that Kamala Harris has said that she's going to offer first-time home buyers a $25,000 credit. Curious, what you think of that?
Well, I'll tell you this. First of all, just procedurally, to see if that actually happens, because I know the way that functionally, right, the federal government works, right? There's Congress, the Senate, and there's and then there's the president in order to get a law passed. Unless she wins, unless there's a majority Democrat Congress, majority Senate,
and
right,
House.
and then
Right.
House.
Yep.
It's just going to be like the stalemate for 4 years, like we see now, right? Congress is majority Republican. So I've seen it on local levels, county levels, certain grants. Does it really make an impact? Does it really move the ticker? So let's say 1 million people are getting this 25 grand. It was like a grant, right? Was it a grant? It was a grant.
Yep.
First-time home buyers. There are different programs local. I know we have in Dade County. Will it really move the ticker? I think it's more political. It sounds good. The average home, right? It's like 500 grand, right? Or like 400 or 500 grand, 25 grand. You need to put down 25%. There is FHA loans, but not always the easiest to get. But the typical conventional mortgage. So figure you still need to come up with 100 grand, 150 grand. So does it help? It may help, but I think it's more, you know how the politicians are, and it's on both sides. They say things in order to make people feel good and get the votes.
Right.
Yeah, we're going to do that. We're going to do this. And
then nothing
and
happens.
because it's so large,
Right.
America's so large, and to really make impact. I always think about, I was talking to somebody the other day about impact. We have that theory. We all want to make impact, but who's really in the trenches, right, making impact? Because I always say there are ideas. It's ideas, because I heard this a long time ago. Ideas without execution is hallucination, right? Always remember that. So ideas every day, like my kids will come with me with different ideas. It's really day by day by day, laying a brick, laying a brick, laying a brick. And there's all this noise that's going on, but that's what leads to eventual success.
I'm curious if you've thought about the election with regards to commercial real estate, because now we're sort of talking about residential, but if you, I don't know, extrapolate it and think about which candidate might be better for office buildings and things like that, have you thought about that?
Yeah, I have in general, even without the election. Again, real estate is very local. And I've been on the show and I've told you that it's a very contrarian view, but the past year I've been investing a lot in buying more office buildings, especially here in South Florida. A stat just came out last week. It's the number one, South Florida's number one back to office in the entire country. It's a little over 91% compared to 2019. So just math-wise, right? So if you're at 91% back to office and you're able to buy from what it was a couple of years ago, 50 cents in the dollar, right? So you have all of that space. And I'm seeing just on my other assets that it's the most busy leasing that I've had this past year compared to ever. Less purchases, so there's less competition, because what it is there's a lot of deals, a lot of, I guess, let's just call it $10 million more deals. There used to be a lot of institutional and pension funds that are buying them. So they have to spend the money. So they're the ones that prop up the market. They overpay, and the brokers go to the one that's going to overpay. So they do that. But what happened is the past year or two, they're sitting there licking their wounds. They're sitting there, there's more delinquency in rents. There's more vacancy. There's things because this kid out of college does this pro forma spreadsheet. Oh, it's going to do this. It's going to be great. But, on a spreadsheet, that looks good. But really on the ground, what really actually goes on, you're pivoting. You're always pivoting in business. So, when they have so many assets. So these guys now on the sidelines cleaning up their mess. So now I just spoke to a broker today. Now it's only just local real estate guys. So it's less competition.
Right.
And that's when you can that's why it's better now to buy because less competition.
So for people who don't know, your company essentially moves in three verticals: multifamily housing, commercial, and assisted living. And just given what you were just talking about a second ago, I'm curious, is one of those three more problematic for you than the other two? Like where does your anxiety go the most? Which one of those buckets?
Well, I'll tell you, I kind of, I would say it's definitely assisted living. I believe in it still very much, and I'll tell you why. But what happened was I believed, young and dumb, when I first got into assisted living. I'm like, oh, yeah, this is just real estate. But same thing with hotels, right? When you buy a type of asset, yes, it's real estate facets, but it's also day-to-day business, right? Where, oh, do we have nurses? Because you have to care for the residents, for the seniors, right? So, are we missing employees because they need the medication? They need 3 meals a day. They need activities. There's a lot of things every single day. It's a lot more labor intensive. And obviously inflation, cost of goods, everything went up. And you want to keep pricing normal. But why do I, for the long term, believe in it? Because, well, I'm in Florida. That's where we have in South Florida. Because 10% of all seniors in the country live in Florida, right? So it's about 5 million seniors, and a lot of baby boomers are retiring. So eventually, it should catch up. I made a pretty big bet on it. So I'm hoping, but the day to day, right? So I'm hoping, but it's hard. It's hard. I mean, look, there's hard in everything, and I think I've said this on the show. When COVID started, the government announced there's no more evictions, and I told my wife, I said, in reality, we might go bankrupt because if nobody has a reason to pay, that
Right.
means we have mortgages due, right? Real estate taxes due, and no money's coming in. So there you go, take back the keys, and that was a very tough moment. And obviously, we pivoted, and we had the leasing agents help people find jobs, and it was a good result. But nobody
Yeah,
knows anything.
and we've told this on the story before, but if people haven't, we told a story on the show before, but if people haven't heard it, I want to stop you and let you talk about that more because it's really amazing what you did. And I'm not asking you to get on your high horse and brag, but so you own all these units. What you just said about COVID and people can't get evicted. So what did you do? You and your wife pivoted, and you helped a bunch of residents, and I'll let you explain it because I think that if people have never heard the show or saw the show, they don't know you like I know you, and it's a great story that speaks to your character.
No, I appreciate that, Dave. So we, I always, again, you got to go backwards in anything that you're dealing with. Everything is logic, right? So it's like, okay, what's the issue? The issue is people were losing their jobs, right? So the only way in life is I always say, create win-wins that it works, right? Why create unnecessary enemies and fighting, and those things don't work. So we knew it was Costco, it was other people, even during COVID, were hiring. So we got to the local agencies and we connected the residents with local agencies, and we helped them fill out the paperwork, and we were able to get a lot of people jobs out because there were some jobs. Everyone's like, whenever you hear that, just in general, everything, all, right? There's no generalizations in things, right? Everyone's individual. Everyone has a story. Like there's no jobs. No, here maybe not. Everything pivots. That's the way. I know I use that word all the time, but everything kind of moves, and you got to watch where trends are going, right? It's not like you can want what was in the past, but the past is in the past, right? So yeah, that's why you do, strategy. Like where do we want to go? Where are things happening? Where are things going? A lot of times I'll look at things and it looks good today, and I won't do it because it's going that way. When we talked about the regarding a potential film studio, but one of my concerns was with artificial intelligence, the technology is unbelievable, right? So I don't know where film making is going to go in 5 years, 10 years, because it's growing AI is growing so fast.
For all the times that we've talked about the story that you just shared about helping people find jobs, I don't think I've ever asked you, what did you learn from COVID that has impacted how you make decisions now on a daily basis?
I think it's really tuning out all the noise from outside people, right? That's a lot of fear and hysteria, and really honing in, because it's all just people, really just listening. Okay, residents, what's going on? The vendors, what's happening? Conversations, what can we do? Even if I mean, that was a last resort, but there were different real estate colleagues that I had that negotiated payment plans on mortgages. I'm very lucky that I didn't have to. And the banks are grateful that I didn't, and now it helps build rapport and relationship. But there's always, remember, if the general large economy is having really tough time, don't hide. Don't hide. That's the number one thing. And I learned that years before, but it reinstated with COVID. That someone, an old timer, who was kind of my mentor, he said, you stand front and center of every issue. There's an issue. It's not just your issue. You deal with it and you keep your word. These are and you show, okay, we're not making profit now. We have projections that hopefully in 2 years we will. But if you have a plan and you have normal conversations, banks don't want to own property. They're in the business of lending, right? So, hey, listen, what are you going to do? You take back the property, fighting, this, that.
Right.
Let me do what I got to do. Give me a little breathing, right? And you curb your expenses. You hold down the fort the best you can. So
what I love about every single time we do this is I've got all these questions and then we start talking and we just go in like 10 other places, which I love, and I would hope that the viewers and listeners enjoy it too. So given that, if someone owns a business, whatever their business is, it doesn't have to be real estate. Because you've been doing this for over a decade, there's going to be twists and turns. There's going to be the unexpected, a pandemic for crying out loud, or whatever else. I'm curious what advice you'd give someone who's watching the show. They just started a business and they didn't expect the 9 different catastrophes that have happened to them over the past couple of weeks. How do you stay the course and, stick with it and persevere?
Right. The natural, and I was just talking to my son just yesterday about this, because he's pivoting idea to idea, and that's the typical response. That's what I did, and it's the hardest instinct that you have to really fine tune, because the instinct would be, oh, okay, I'm trying this. This is not working. I'm trying to sell lemonade or whatever. Do this thing. So, and your friends and family are telling you, oh, what are you doing? You're an idiot. Why are you doing that? So your instinct is, oh, I'll try a different, and our brain works. So we're coming up with ideas. I'll just try that. Drop that out. And I'm doing that for 10 years. And all of a sudden, I didn't build a foundation. The real way for success is you have, even though people are telling you no and this and that, but you have something that you see. You have a vision. And usually the way it is actually, the simpler ideas are the ones that have the greatest statistic to succeed. I'm going to land, we're going to have colonize Mars, okay? What's the real thing about SpaceX? SpaceX really has low-level orbit, and that was going on before, these satellites. I don't know if they're really going to go to Mars. I mean, realistic, it sounds good. It's a great vision.
Would you go
dream.
if Elon called you tomorrow and he's like, hey, I picked your name at random. We're taking 10 people on a shuttle to Mars. Want to go?
I think that there's so much more to do here on Earth. I don't know. It sounds good. I don't know. Probably one of my kids would go. I don't know if I would be into that. But really keep it simple, stupid. I've seen that time and time again. And who are the ones that really, really succeed? It's the ones, I call them in the back of the class because you get this job at a school, law school, business school, whatever, you're in college, and then you work and it's 10 years and but it's the guy that had no choice. He's like, okay, I gotta, collect garbage and do whatever it takes. And in that forced space, just to put some food on the table, day by day, all of a sudden it's a couple months, it's a year, 2 years, all of a sudden, oh wow. That's usually where I see it, because the boat that took you to the island has been burned.
Right. So I think one of the things that I took from what you just said is, before you go into a business, I think you better be really crystal clear on your idea. And it doesn't have to be super complicated. In fact, it probably shouldn't be. It's probably like you need to just be very, very clear on, I am solving this problem.
Right. Identify a problem where you're going to work extremely hard, customer service, to add value to the target audience, and you're going to do it relentlessly, and you're going to show up every time, and you're going to keep your word.
And you probably should be able to explain it in 2 sentences.
Yeah, back of the napkin, I always say.
Right, exactly.
Of course.
Yeah.
If you don't have that clarity, you probably shouldn't be the one leading the ship. Because with that clarity, you're able to communicate it, because only effective team play gets the great results. And that was what Steve Jobs said. His greatest thing was he made an amazing team. His team, right? A lot of things I'm not good at. I mean, I'm constantly I want to be around good people. Please, just let me know. Please. I know.
Please.
Right?
How much leeway do you give someone if they're not a good person, but they're producing?
if they're honest and they're trying, I try to give them everything. They call it coaching counsel and work. Maybe try this, try that. If their heart is in the right place and they're a team player and they're open, transparent, right? There's no games. They're trying. They're just not getting it. So we have systems to try to help people.
Do you think there should be so I'll give you a sports example. So there's guys in football, for example, that aren't the best guys. They show up late. They don't work as hard, but they're just great. They're quarterbacks and they just have natural talent. And maybe there's a different set of rules for them. I'm paraphrasing, but I recall Jimmy Johnson used to talk about how the rules for Troy Aikman were different than everybody else because he was Troy Aikman. So I'm curious, have you had people that work under you that are really good at what they do? So maybe the rules are different, or no, you try to treat everyone the same?
I try my best. Obviously, there's executives, and then there's different levels of, right, where there's a handbook, employee handbook. These are the rules, this is what it is. And we really try to stick to that. Why? Culture, company culture, morale. Someone says, whoa, why is it doing that? Why? You have to, you leave it flexible, but you have to, the general framework has to be on point, and it's in writing. It's in writing before anybody's hired. Read it, sign it, kind of, but it's not crazy. It's just, okay, show up, come with office.
Not asking for much.
Right.
Show up. So you mentioned earlier that one of your sons, you were talking to him about the business. I know that a couple of your boys are maybe following in their dad's footsteps. And I'm curious for the people watching and listening, do you, A, recommend having your kids go into the family business? And then I guess, B, what would be your advice if someone's children are going into the family business?
That's a tough one. First of all, a lot of, you have to know your child. A lot of them just will say point blank, I don't want to do that. It seems like, my oldest is 18, and he's been working with us for 2 years, and he really enjoys it. He comes, Dad, I found out about this, this about leases and about this, about rents, and so he has a passion for it. My other son, I think that he likes it. He wants to go to law school and pursue other things. So I don't want to pressure him. I don't think that, especially nowadays, parents shouldn't say you must do this. There's a business in anything and everything. If you have a passion, that's what I think parents should do. Bring out the passion and say, okay, you don't want to go to school, but tell me what you're going to be doing every day, right? You're going to be working on this, do that. It's funny, now my two oldest boys, and I mentioned it on the show, they do in the vending machine business. And they asked me the other day if I lost everything. I would go into the vending machine business. If I'm starting from nothing, right? You see that something's Mark Cuban, or you see him, right? Grant Cardone. Start with nothing in the middle of nowhere. Why do I like that? Everybody likes a snack and a drink, a Snicker and a Coke or whatever, right? Recession, no recession. And what's the big deal? It's not harming anybody. You're not taking anybody's business. You go to an office building, you go to apartment complex, you knock on the door, you bother them a lot. Please, 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 And I, here in South Florida, I think, and it's just a bread and butter, a very simple business. Same thing like ATMs or washing machines or even car wash. That's what it's. So you're making $5,000, $2,000, $3,000, whatever it is, and you're building up. And if you can get, like my son found a dealer half the price from China, and he gets them shipped in these vending machines, and my two boys were very different. But through the business, now they're figuring out they have different mindsets, but they're working together.
And the technology on these machines has improved, so you're not going to hit E4 for the Snickers, and it's not going to come out. Right. It's just going to be taunting you.
Right, hanging there.
Come on, shaking the thing. Yeah, that doesn't happen anymore.
So two cool things, right? You just have the credit card reader, so boom.
Yep.
And they have an app. They show them in the app. Look, this machine and this place. Look, I made $100 today.
That's
I'm
cool.
All right. So, but it teaches them income, expense, the basics, and It's good for them, whatever, because whether it's real estate or any other business, the most important thing is to have a handle on the numbers. The numbers is the money in, the money out, right? A lot of people I noticed that they're afraid of that. They're afraid of what do you start with? Your own finances, your day to day. Oh, I have a light bill I got to pay, or I got my lease payment I got to pay. So get comfortable with that. Okay, here's this income. I pay income tax. I'm have this. Let me budget your stuff, right? Organize your cut, right? They always say that, but those things are scalable within you, right? So that's kind of how I see it.
Yeah, and if you go into the vending machine business, you can make $100,000.
Right?
Snack pun. You ever have a $100,000 bar?
Oh, I know, right over here.
Yeah, maybe we'll edit that joke.
Yeah, I know.
So we started off talking about the election, and we ended up talking about vending machines. That's a good show, in my opinion. Thanks for letting me do this, man.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure, Dave. Like you said, I mean, I'm sure there's other questions there, but I mean, always the heart and soul of this show is that we give practical advice to people. I get messages and I get, which I'm super grateful for, and calls, and people I'll just meet. It's like, oh, you said what your grandfather said, that the numbers never lie. I'm like, yeah. I mean, so it seems like that slowly you always ask what I'm grateful for. I'm grateful sitting in this chair today that hopefully we're helping person by person as time goes on. So that's great.
And I think next week's show, you'll definitely be doing that again because you're going to be chatting with Peter Crone, a mindset expert. And Peter's a thought leader in human potential and performance, and his specialty is revealing the limiting beliefs and subconscious narratives that shape behavior, health, relationships, and performance. And you've had a number of those types of guests. And I feel like every time you have one of those, it's a different, like they each have this sort of different system of attacking these challenges, and they usually prove to be very inspiring episodes.
Yeah, definitely. It all starts, I always say this, the greatest tool that we have as humans is our mind. Our mind is playing tricks on us. I was reading about fear. Fear is the reason why action is not happening. Action is the thing that gets results. Fear is only something of the past that happened in the past. It doesn't exist anymore. Or fear of something will be in the future. Didn't happen yet. Mm-hmm. So people, if I think of one wish, that fear didn't exist. Fear was just manipulation and games of people that are played and your perception of it. And if that went away, so much more better things would be in the world.
Yeah, and on one hand, great if it never existed, but on the other hand, even more empowering if it did exist and you wrestled with it forever and then you overcame it.
Sure.
Then it's even better.
Sure. Oh, yeah.
Right?
Right, because maybe that's the whole idea. Maybe that's the idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is amazing when I see that. I mean, we had a lot of guests that have gone through that, and you see the things that they've accomplished. It's great.
It's awesome. Yeah. Well, thanks, dude, again, for letting me do this. And if you enjoyed this show, if you enjoy Common Denominator, you know what to do. Like, subscribe, share, comment, tell your friends, do all that great stuff. And Moshe, we'll see you again next week.